Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Swan Altruistic in the AITAH subreddit. The post is titled AITA for insulting my father's girlfriend and telling her to get out of our lives. My mother was my world. I remember reading books, watching documentaries, and going on road trips with her. She baked cookies for my sister and me whenever we were sick. She and dad would take us hiking every other week. I still miss her even now. When I was 11 years old, she passed away in a driving accident. It was the hardest year of my life and it hasn't gotten easier. 2 years after she passed, my father started dating a woman named Nicole, and 4 years later, they are getting married. Nicole is younger than my father. After he started dating Nicole, I saw my father come back into his shell, but it turned into something else. Nicole brought adventure back into his life. They often went on elaborate trips and had frequent nights out. During all of this, I felt neglected. My father slowly stopped taking my sister and me on our weekly hikes. He started speaking less and less over calls, and he even once forgot my mother's birthday. After she came into our lives, I started losing my father. He just wasn't there anymore. One time, when my sister and I were home alone, she fell down the stairs and got a huge cut on her forehead. It was clear she needed stitches, so I called my father immediately. Nicole answered the phone, and I told her to give the phone to my father. She refused, saying he was busy, and before I could get another word in, she disconnected the call. Embarrassingly, I had to ask the neighbor to bring us to urgent care, where my dad later met us. This woman even removed my mother's picture from the fireplace mantle to put up a picture of her and my dad from their trip to Washington. The thing that tipped me over was when she made my father forget about my mother's birthday. Every year, my sister and I go with our father to visit my mother on her birthday. It was an annual tradition even before Nicole entered our lives. Nicole and my father went on a trip to Florida and were supposed to be back 3 days before my mother's birthday. But because this woman is motion sick, my father decided to break the drive back into small intervals to make it easier on her. Because of this, he ended up missing our annual trip. He didn't even call us. Not even a week later, my father had the nerve to tell us about an exciting surprise. Nicole is pregnant. I got angry and told my father, "You need to knock her up when you can't even be here for us." I then looked at Nicole and told her she was a disgusting piece of trash and to get out of our lives. My father got angry and yelled at me to go up to my room. Later, my grandpa unexpectedly came over to pick me up. My father didn't text me at all. Even as I left, he wouldn't look at me. It's been 2 days and I'm still at my grandparents' home. I feel ashamed for saying what I said, yet I don't feel overwhelming regret. AITA, edit. When I saw how deep the cut was, I immediately called my dad. He was staying over at Nicole's place at the time. When I called, Nicole picked up. She said, "Hello?" I said, "Sister is bleeding. Can you pass the phone to dad?" She said, "Dad is busy. I can't." And immediately afterwards, she disconnected the phone. I then left to go get my neighbor. Update. I've decided to contact my maternal grandpa tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes. Update 2. I called my maternal grandpa while everyone was still sleeping. It ended up being a 2-hour call. I basically mentioned everything I've said here and how I want to live with him if possible. He said that as much as he wants me to get out of there, he can't do much without my father's approval. I hinted at a legal approach, but he said he wouldn't be able to see us if it got that far. My grandpa also shared some new information regarding my dad. According to him, when I was 14 and my sister was 10, my dad dropped us off at my grandpa's farm since he and Nicole were flying out. A day after they returned, my grandpa dropped us back home. We were still sleeping in Grandpa's car when this ordeal happened. When my grandpa knocked on the door, my dad answered it drunk out of his mind. From what little he could see, my grandpa saw that the house was a mess. He told my dad that he would bring us back the following day once my dad was in his right mind. We returned to Grandpa's place. Then my grandpa got a call from my dad the next morning threatening him with the police if he didn't bring us back immediately. My grandpa mentioned that he would speak with my paternal grandparents to see if something could be done about our situation. User DG87 said NTA. Nicole showed her true colors when your sister was injured and she wouldn't let you talk to your dad. He has shown his true colors too in many different ways. I hope your grandparents can continue to be there for you. You didn't mention your age, but I hope you can be free of all this soon. You were harsh and rude, but I can't fault you given what you've shared. To this OP said, I appreciate it. I'm 17 and I've spoken to school counselors too. No one is willing to help me. I've tried talking with my dad about how I feel long before my outburst, but it always ends with, "It happened years ago. It's time to move on." I don't even know what that means. My sister can't get help either, so I'm trying to peacefully exist for her. User mbop said, "NTA, I'm so sorry, OP. I don't even know where to start. You are categorically not the AH. Nicole is a huge one, but your dad wins by a mile. You and your sister should be his top priority, not the afterthought he's currently treating you as." What happened at the hospital? Did you or your sister tell the nurse that you were home alone and that your father wouldn't come to the phone? OP said, "My neighbor came with us inside the urgent care, but while driving us there, he called my dad and he picked up. My dad said he'd be there in 15 to 20 minutes, which he was. I'm scared of saying anything that could get him in trouble, so I made something up like she got hurt while playing outside. In the past, I mentioned something to a school counselor and a police officer visited our home. My dad got pretty angry, so I tried to avoid those situations. Hopefully, this gives some context." User No Royal said, "OP, I am so sorry you two children are neglected. NTA 100 times. Ask your grandparents to get your mother's heirlooms out of the house, and I really hope you can lean on your grandparents and stay with them. Tell them about this neglect. Also, check that your mother's legacy is not stolen from you. Your father is not a good parent or person. He has abandoned you when you have lost your mother, and you would deserve special love and care. I hope you can go to counseling for emotional support. Work on your school, cling to your sibling and grandparents, and any aunts or uncles if you have any. Lean on friends. Good luck, OP. Your feelings are very justified. You are not the AH here." Small update. I've set up a meeting with the counselor next week while my dad is out in California. Not gonna lie, I feel anxious about it because I haven't told anyone. I'm trying to time it so he's not here or can't be here when all of this goes down. Hi everyone, it's been a while. I really want to thank all of you for your perspectives and advice. Just wanted to give an update. Regarding Thanksgiving dinner, when my dad and Nicole arrived, I asked if I could speak with them both. My dad said he didn't want to talk and went into the living room. Nicole remained by the front door, so I apologized for insulting her. She replied that she needed to leave and went to the living room. Overall, she still seemed rightfully angry with me. Dinner was awkward because my grandma tried to get my dad and me to talk, but he wouldn't really bother. After dinner, I pulled him aside and apologized again. He ignored me and went straight to Nicole. I still wasn't sure if I was heading back with him or not, so I packed everything just in case. When he was getting ready to leave, I asked him if I could come back home. He said Nicole wasn't comfortable having me home even though it had been a few days since the incident. I spent the entire night crying on the phone with my sister. Therapy and living situation. After my call with my maternal grandpa, he called my paternal grandparents a couple of days later to discuss my situation. I overheard their conversation. My maternal grandpa expressed concern about me, especially regarding my mental state, and asked my paternal grandparents if they were willing to talk to my dad about putting me in therapy. My grandparents said they'd be willing to take me to their church's mental support group or talk with their faith leader who specializes in grief counseling. My grandpa pushed back on the idea and mentioned a need for more professional help, but they were not receptive to it. All three of them also had a heated discussion about my living arrangement. My grandpa said it was ridiculous for a grown man to throw out his daughter and that it was shameful that my paternal grandparents were not hard-pressed to help me get back home. That's all I heard regarding the conversation. Now, my grandma has started taking me to weekly private sessions with the faith leader. I'm not entirely happy with the arrangement, but it has helped me start to process my grief in a healthier way. Also, I am still living with my grandparents. I apologized over and over through text to my dad and through my grandparents, but he has not responded. My maternal grandpa has called my dad many times, but my dad blocked him. I am contemplating telling my school counselor next semester all the details regarding my dad without omitting anything to protect him. I also wasn't invited to my dad and Nicole's Christmas dinner, which hurt, but I'm starting not to care about having a relationship with my dad. I don't know if my feelings will change. In a twisted way, it was good he didn't let me go back home with him. The space has helped me focus on myself. Small edit. Hi, I appreciate all of the supportive messages and advice, but please do not message me violent messages or tell me to do terrible things. Again, I would never wish harm on anyone. Hi, I wasn't sure if I was still allowed to add long updates to my old post, but I wanted to give one. Right now, everything is a mess, so I'll try my best to be coherent. In hindsight, this was an idiotic mistake on my part. After I scheduled a meeting with my counselor, I mentioned it while calling my sister. On the call, I never explicitly stated my intention to report him, but she started freaking out and telling me it was not a good idea. She ended up crying on the call, saying that I would be hurting our father if I reported him. I told her that I wouldn't go to the meeting to help her calm down. Regardless, I still planned on attending the counselor meeting. I scheduled it for the second week of January while my father was out in California. The night before the meeting, I got a call from my father. He said that if I ever wanted a place to live again, I should not spread lies about him to the counselor. I said that I would never do that, and that was the end of the call. This was the first time I had spoken to him in days, and I never gave any indication of reporting him. I realized my sister must have said something, so I called her to talk. I asked her why she would tell him something like this, and she said that he called her to ask what I was doing. She slipped up and told him that I was planning to meet with the counselor. I still ended up going to the counselor meeting and told him everything that was going on. I asked the counselor not to notify my father about the meeting, and he agreed. At the very end, the counselor gave me 2 to 3 pamphlets for mental health support and said he would follow up with me. He also dodged my questions regarding what would happen next. A day later, right after I got home from school, my paternal grandpa called me over and said he wanted to talk. He told me that the school called my father to set up a meeting with the counselor. He started yelling and getting angry with me, saying that if I pull this shit, they'll take my sister and the baby away. He also said that I wasn't raised to lie and continued to reprimand me. I never thought my grandpa was capable of being this way, but it scared me how angry he got. As a result, I got grounded and am not allowed to drive or visit friends for a couple of weeks. I don't know what exactly went down in the meeting between the counselor and my father. From the call between my grandpa and father, I learned there was a police officer present in the meeting and that they will be doing a wellness check. Also, my father denied everything that I told the counselor and chalked it up to me being spiteful because I lost my mom. I wasn't in a good mental state afterward, and I'm still not. I call my friend and ask her to stay on the phone with me most times, or I just rot in my room. Also, as punishment, my grandma stopped taking me to see the faith leader, so that's my current situation. Update. I am only making a mini update. During the meeting with the counselor and police officer, my father knew to expect a wellness check. In fact, he's been home early every single day last week, which is unlike him. My sister texted me last Tuesday that our father came home early from work and told her to behave. She was panicking and freaking out, so I called her to help her calm down. I explained to her that a police officer might come over for a wellness check, and she should answer the officer's questions honestly. I again don't know specifically what transpired during the wellness check, but my sister told me that the officer came to ask my father some questions and asked her if she was okay. I asked her what she told the officer, and she said that she was fine. Nothing has come out of it. As soon as my sister texted me on that Tuesday, I tried sneaking out to go over to my dad's home before the officer came, but my grandpa caught me. He brought me back inside and we had a yelling match, to put it lightly. I yelled at him, saying he doesn't care for my sister and me. He yelled at me, saying he was tired of my spoiled ass and that I should be grateful that I still get food and a bed after the foolishness I recently pulled at school. I left in the middle of his rant to calm down in my room. My grandma came up shortly afterward to check on me. She said that my dad and grandpa are going through a lot to figure out this mess and to please not make it worse for her sake and mine. I asked her what she meant by for my sake and hers. She said that I need to mature and act like an adult and not cause her stress. Then she said, "You need to stop stressing Nicole. You know, the poor woman has been calling me crying about what you did. She's scared for the baby." After she said that, I did not have the energy to enter into another yelling match, so I told my grandma that I needed some space and left. The counselor did not follow up with me during school last week. Also, I think it's for the best right now. My sister had a panic attack last week. They almost called paramedics because she couldn't stop hyperventilating. I know she is suffering and doesn't need anything else placed on her mentally. I also don't want to break her trust again after going to the counselor. She is the type of person to keep things to herself if there isn't a strong rapport. If she is going through something, she will not tell you unless you force her hand. I still want her to feel safe and open when she speaks with me. I'm still evaluating my options and trying to find the best path forward. A few weeks later, OP gave us another update. This will be my final update for a while. Over a week ago, my grandparents asked me to stay at my friend's place for a week since Nicole needed my grandma's help with the pregnancy. For context, Nicole has severe fatigue and nausea, and her mom was coming in a week later. Additionally, my grandparents have only one extra bedroom, which is why they asked me to stay at my friend's place. I was not mad about the arrangement. I got to be away from everyone, which was helpful. My father and Nicole's relationship. My father is working, so he is unable to take time off to help Nicole. Hence, she needs my grandma and her mom's assistance. After overhearing a conversation between my grandma and Nicole, I learned that both of them are under a lot of stress, which is making Nicole feel depressed. That's all I know about their situation. 3 days ago, my sister ended up in the hospital. She has been bullied for a long time. We've reported it to the school numerous times, but nothing is ever done about it. A girl who has been harassing her online started name-calling and laughing at her while they were walking to class. My sister then pushed the girl away from her, which escalated into a physical fight. The girl bashed my sister's head into the locker during the altercation. My sister lost consciousness and the school immediately called emergency services. My grandparents went to the hospital and I went when I was done with school. My maternal grandpa drove in that night. My sister ended up with a severe concussion but came back home on Friday. She is doing better but is still having bad headaches. The bully was suspended, but nothing else was done. By the way, in all of this mayhem, my dad did not show up once at the hospital. I am now living with my maternal grandpa, but my sister is living at my dad's place. My grandma has been going over to check on her, but the fact that she is still living alone in that home worries me. She is still recovering from everything, and no one is there for her. My maternal grandpa asked my dad if he could take my sister with him for a week, but he said no. This POS also threatened to call the cops on my maternal grandpa again. I'm planning to call the cops on him after he leaves for work on Monday. I don't know what else to do to get her out of this situation. A month after that, OP posted another update. I really want to thank you all for your support and wonderful advice. This has been a crazy roller coaster in general, but I'm glad it's finally coming to an end. I know there is still a lot more I'll go through, but I'm relieved that my sister is safe. Just to preface, all of this literally happened today. My other post was also becoming too long, so I thought I would make a new one. At school, the front office lady called me over the intercom during the middle of my exam. I went over and saw my dad standing there. This man pulled me out of class so he could bring me back home. I immediately told him that I wasn't coming, and he said I didn't have a choice in this and to move. By the way, during all of this, we were still standing in the front office. I then yelled at him to leave, and he yelled at me to shut up and move. The front office lady got involved and asked if there was a problem. I told her that I refused to go back with him and asked her to call my grandpa. My dad then grabbed my arm and tried dragging me out of the front office while I just kept screaming. The lady called the security officer and he came over. My dad told him I was acting like a brat and was the problem child. I told the officer that I now live with my grandpa and not him. They called another officer over and he told me that I was only allowed to leave with my father. The officers left and my dad gripped my wrist and pulled me toward his car. Then he ordered me to get into the car or else. I tried getting away, but he shoved me into the passenger seat. He then warned me not to try anything and drove off back to his house. He then said I had to care for my sister while he was at work this week because I'm responsible for what happened to her, and this is my way of paying him back for everything I've put him through. He then texted me a minute after he left, telling me not to try anything and that he would physically discipline me if he had to. By the way, he has never physically hurt me or severely threatened me like this before, so it was frightening when I saw the text. A while after he left, I called the cops and said I had been taken against my will back to his house and told them about him manhandling me. The cops came over along with my maternal grandpa. Since no caretaker was home for my sister and my father didn't pick up his phone, the cops allowed my grandpa to take her back home with us. They located my father a bit later and arrested him. It's a shit show right now, but now my sister is living with me and my maternal grandpa, so I know she is at least safe. Nicole is in the hospital because she was bleeding heavily and we don't know if the baby is okay. I didn't think he could get any scummier than he is, but today, through my lawyer, I found out that this POS just got charged with possession of child P. Apparently, they searched his phone regarding a situation involving my sister when they came across the graphic pictures. I sincerely hope he rots in hell. My grandpa noticed bruising around the nape of my sister's neck, and I noticed a lot of bruising on one part of her abdomen while helping her change. The bruising could not have come from her fall or the fight she had a couple of weeks ago. We're suspecting the worst and have reported and documented the bruises. My sister is also not in a state where she is able to fully hold conversations, but from what she was able to tell me, my dad hit her on the neck and threw something at her stomach while she was asleep. Everything has been reported to CPS and the police. 4 months later, OP came back with another short update, so I'll be including this with his final post. My grandpa passed away in May. He was meeting with a friend after a meeting with the lawyers when it happened. I truly do not know how to feel. Everything afterward was a blur and I am still dealing with the aftermath. The funeral was rushed and messy. He was not even buried next to my grandmother, but was cremated against his wishes. I was never once asked what my grandpa would have wanted. It seemed like people wanted to get over it and move on. I don't even have my grandpa's urn, and I don't know who has it now or what happened to it. I was never given a moment to breathe. Within a week of his passing, I was moved to 2 different homes of relatives I've never met. I've lost a lot of contact with my sister. She is less and less responsive to my calls or texts. My relative is trying to arrange a meeting for us by communicating with my paternal grandparents. He told me that he met with my sister and that she was healthy and doing well. I don't know what's going to come from the custody issues now. I am personally done speaking about my situation. I'm getting ready for college and am back in contact with my sister. She has recovered well, though a few things are still ongoing. Many of the other issues still pending may take months to resolve. However, I am ready to move on. Thank you all for the advice and well wishes.